you will see that UPSC ka geography mein one of the favorite topics has been this. Like this year, they had asked a question: what is sea surface what is sea surface temperature rise? How does this affect formation of tropical cyclone? It was in the mains examination this year. Then in 2022, they had asked, discuss the meaning of color coding weather warning of cyclone prone areas given by IMD. IMD का color coding mechanism को explain करो. That is what they had asked. So we'll talk about IMD mechanism also and the international mechanism, international standards which are followed. Then tropical cyclones are largely confined to South China Sea, Bay of Bengal and Gulf of Mexico. Why? This was asked in 2014. After this lecture, after this topic, we should be in a position to answer this question also very comfortably. And then in 2013, जब syllabus change का पहला year था, in 2013 they asked recent cyclone on the coast of India was called Phailin. How are the tropical cyclones named across the world? This was another. So you will see in last 10 years, 11 years, since 2013 when the syllabus change had occurred, how many questions on cyclones have been asked? 4 already. This is how important this topic is, how relevant this topic is, and we will finish it once and for all. We'll be in a position to answer all the questions. I have given some other practice questions also. Why is east coast of India more prone to tropical cyclones compared to west coast of India? That is in general more prone. ऐसा नहीं है कि west coast पे cyclone नहीं आते. Why is it more prone? We should be able to give those reasons also. And one general question. So what are the conditions which are required for formation of tropical cyclones? Because rest of the answers will come from here. Why some region is more prone? Because वहाँ पे conditions which are required for formation of cyclones are better, right? Why do cyclones occur in some parts of the world? Because we'll see in those parts of the world the conditions which are required for formation of cyclone do exist. Okay, ये सारी चीजें हमें पढ़नी है, but please understand when we finish this topic, it will not be just these questions we'll be able to answer. I've tried to cover everything like cyclone season in India. India में cyclone season दो parts में divided रहता है, pre-monsoon and post-monsoon. We'll understand reason for it. Rest of the world में that's not the case. Rest of the world में cyclone season is one season, but in India it is divided into 2 seasons. Those aspects also have to be dealt with. Okay, so let us start with this topic. First of all, when we get a question on cyclone in examination, in mains examination, when we get a question on cyclone, how do we introduce that question? Again, it will depend on in what circumstances have that question been asked. If the question is about if in recent times there have been some major cyclone event, we can give the recent context and introduce our answer. But in worst case, हमारे पास एक definition तो prepared रहना ही चाहिए कि जब कुछ भी नहीं आ पा रहा, तो we should be defining, we should be able to talk about cyclones. तो first what I was saying was हमारे पास एक definition तो prepared रहना चाहिए. If a question on tropical cyclone, we can give some context, we can give some data, context based introduction, data based introduction, but a definition based introduction should always be ready. So what is tropical cyclone? It's a violent storm system. Very simple term mein, it's a violent storm system, but violent storm systems can be of there are many other things which can be violent storm system. So यहाँ पे it will not be complete. It's a violent storm system which is characterized by low pressure center. If you have seen a cyclone के बीच में there will be low pressure. For those of you who haven't studied cyclone in the past, we will study all those details too. But in your definition, it's a violent storm system which is characterized by a low pressure center, strong winds that spiral inwards, and heavy rainfall. This will be a good enough definition. Now, cyclones is कुछ और aspect भी, but before that, in preliminary examination they may ask you this kind of thing. तो ये एक मैंने prelims का box अलग से बना दिया है कि cyclones are named, tropical cyclones are named differently in different regions of the world. For example, in Indian Ocean region they are called cyclones, but in Atlantic Ocean they are called hurricane. अभी recently एक दो दिन पहले एक major hurricane आया US में. What was it called? Hilton. What was that cyclone? अभी 10th और 11th को US में hit किया उसने. It was Milton only. Yes. So there it is called hurricane. Then in West Pacific or South China Sea it is called typhoon and in West Australia it is called Willy-willies. Okay, but ये सारे different नाम हैं. Now, basic definition of cyclones we are comfortable with. Let us understand a bit about how cyclones are formed. थोड़ा सा ये static वाला portion before I jump onto individual topics. Why cyclones originate in particular areas and थोड़ा सा basics जो आप सबने geography में पढ़ा होगा. पढ़ा है तो I can skip it. Do you understand how cyclones are formed? All those things. All of you are comfortable. Why are you not comfortable? अच्छा तुमने अभी ज्योग्राफी पढ़ा ही नहीं है फाउंडेशन बैचेस में. ओके चलो तो लेट मी ब्रीफली एक्सप्लेन हाउ साइक्लोन्स आर फॉर्म्ड. देखो, these are the conditions which are required for the cyclone formation. With the help of these conditions we'll also understand how cyclones are formed. देखो, for cyclones to occur, first prerequisite is you should have a large, still and warm ocean. Ocean का एक बहुत बड़ा एरिया, large area, which is at a temperature, sea surface temperature, where sea surface temperature is around 26.5 degrees Celsius or more for a considerable depth. One thing that is needed is, so you will not see tropical cyclones occurring in temperate regions. Tropical cyclone will occur in tropical regions or warmer ocean wale region, but not in the entire region. We'll understand this is only one of the prerequisites. The one thing that you need for cyclones to occur is what? Large, still and warm ocean where temperature is, sea surface temperature is of around 26.5 degrees Celsius and not only at the surface but up to a depth of 50 meters. So warm water is there. This warm water should be able to evaporate easily. And large area इसलिए बोल रहे हैं क्योंकि sufficient amount, more amount of warm water should be there. Okay, then there should be a pre-existing weak low pressure area. Now what is low pressure area? Low pressure area is any area where pressure is lower than the surrounding regions. So what would happen? Wind from surrounding region will be coming to this low pressure area. So what you should have is one condition is warm, large ocean surface. Second condition is a low pressure area. Now what happens at low pressure area is wind from all the side will be converging at this low pressure area. Do we get it? Second point. Then the third key aspect is presence of Coriolis force. Now to explain you the presence of Coriolis force, let's first understand that when the wind is converging, in low pressure area, what happens is when you only for you, बाकी सबने तो geography पढ़ा हुआ है, तो only for you, when wind is moving in northern hemisphere, it turn towards its right. That is because of Coriolis force. So when wind will be converging here in the low pressure area, it will not be actually moving straight. It will be moving to its right. ऊपर से आ रहा है, right? This one will also be going to its right. This one will also be going to its right, and this one will also be going to its right. So what you see is a circulation beginning here. Okay, so pre-existing low pressure area, or you'll see a pre-existing weak low pressure area or a low level cyclonic circulation should already exist for a big cyclone to form. पहला condition क्या था? Large, still and warm ocean. Second, pre-existing weak low pressure area. So that this beginning of the cyclone formation could be there. Third condition is presence of Coriolis force. Coriolis force is zero at equator, and it keeps on. देखो, it is Coriolis force which is leading to what? Northern hemisphere में when wind is moving, it's moving to its right. What is the force which is making it go to its right? It is the Coriolis force. So if Coriolis force is not there, that circular pattern will not be getting created, right? So it should be third condition is that there should be presence of Coriolis force. It means you should be away from equator. Equator पे कभी क्या नहीं होगा? Cyclone formation नहीं होगा. So it should be यहाँ पे, here you will see a distance of at least 500 km from equator. Otherwise, ocean would have been warmest near equator. First two conditions could have been satisfied at equator, but the third condition will not be satisfied at the equator. Then small variation in vertical wind speed, or what we are trying to say is vertical wind speed I'll bring you to an image. This is a cyclone. Here, this is the vertical part. Vertically, wind should not be varying a lot. That is, नीचे wind is moving at 5 km per hour. Here wind is moving at 20 km per hour. Here wind is moving at 30 km per hour. This should not be happening. Vertical variation in wind speed should not be there. Why? देखो, if vertical variation would be there, will this vertical part not be broken? It will be broken. So therefore, little variation in, let's come back to our key point, small variation, little variation in vertical wind speed or no variation in vertical wind speed. If there is a lot of variation, low wind shear, that is, there is not too much change in the wind direction and strength at different level. If it would be there, then the stable cyclone will not be created, this vertical component will not be created. Then upper divergence above sea level. This is another key thing which would be required. That is, what would happen is, what we are trying to say here is, let me make a cyclone for you. ये अपना cyclone बन रहा था. This was the beginning. This was the beginning. More and more wind with moisture with what? Water vapor will come in, will start circulating. And the circulating will keep on moving upwards. When it moves upwards, what happens is, water vapor ऊपर जाएगा, it will cool down. Water vapor will condense and become water droplet. But in the process, what happens? In the process, it gives up energy. That energy will intensify the cyclone further and everything is moving upwards. But in the upper part, there should be a divergence. Only then this cloud will be spread throughout the region, and that is the point being discussed here. Upper divergence above sea level. So cyclone का vertical component and everything is moving upwards, and in the upper part there should be divergence. So upper divergence above the sea level. So if this upper divergence doesn't exist, cyclone formation will not be possible, or it will not be maintained for a long period. And then if ITCZ is away from the equator, the tropical cyclone is intensified because of warm air masses converging at ITCZ. So देखो, ITCZ is what? Intertropical convergence zone, where low pressure system रहेगा. If it is away from it, if it is on equator, Coriolis force will be 0. Cyclone will not be formed. But if it is away from equator, Coriolis force would also be there and low pressure convergence would also occur, intertropical convergence zones. यहाँ पे cyclone formation would be more effective. Okay, these are the conditions required for what? These are the conditions required for formation of tropical cyclones. आपसे पूछा जाए, what are the conditions required for tropical cyclone? Warm, large sea surface, first thing. Second, low pressure, presence of low pressure. Third, presence of Coriolis force. Fourth, absence of variation in vertical wind speed, so that shear is not there. A lot of shear is not there, which will break the system, right? And then these general aspect, upper divergence above the sea level system. If upper divergence is not there, the structure will not be stable. And finally, if ITCZ is away from equator, that's good for us, where the convergence will take place. Are we clear about it? These are the conditions which are required for formation of cyclone. So whenever a question is asked, कि यार, why do more cyclones form in Bay of Bengal and not in Arabian Sea? We will see which of these conditions are more probable in Bay of Bengal and less probable in Arabian Sea. हम अभी एक PYQ आया था कि why in this parts of the world cyclones are not formed. We'll try to understand that by, these are the conditions required for formation of cyclones. These are the conditions required for formation of, इनमें से what will not be possible in those parts. And based on that, we'll be able to say why in those parts of the world cyclones cannot be formed. है ना? Are we getting it? Are we understanding it? I will not be able to go in more detail here because what did I tell you? I need 4 things you should be knowing it. Basics of history, geography, polity, economy. एंड एथिक्स। ये सारी चीजें आपको आनी चाहिए. अदर देन दैट everything will take care of in the current affairs program. I can take an entire class and explaining how cyclones are formed and what are the key components, but that will, then what will he do in GS Foundation? Then what is the point of doing basics at your own? This is a current affairs class, will not be able to go in more depth. But क्या हमसे अगर पूछा जाएगा what are the conditions required for the formation of cyclone, will we simply be able to write it? And in our head be also will we also be able to think यार ये condition क्यों required है, वो भी सोच पाओगे? ओके. अब प्रोसेस ऑफ फॉर्मेशन ऑफ साइक्लोन आई थिंक आई एक्सप्लेन यू कि पहले क्या होगा, वार्म ओशन सरफेस होगा, लो प्रेशर सेंटर विल बी क्रिएटेड, विंड्स फ्रॉम सराउंडिंग रीजन आर अट्रैक्टेड टुवर्ड्स दिस रीजन and because of Coriolis force they will be circulating while they'll rise up. While rising up they release the latent heat which acts as energy for tropical cyclone. How does it get intensified? It gets intensified from the energy that it is getting from the condensation. Various stages in the formation of tropical cyclone. Tropical cyclone ka stage will be decided by how fast it is moving. Initially the wind speed will be lesser, so at that time it is called tropical depression when the beginning is happening. Then as the wind speed goes above 62 km per hour, it is called tropical storm. As it goes below above 119 km per hour, it's called cyclone. And when the wind speed is above 320 km per hour, it's called super cyclone. Okay, now यहाँ पे वो structure समझा रखा है आपको कि इसका 3D image, this is something that I've taken from NCERT, this is something that I've just taken from internet. So wind converged, this vertically things moved, cloud formation occurred, this is the outflow where cloud would be moving, rainfall would occur, but in the eye there is no cloud. In the eye there will be no rainfall. In fact, जो wind ऊपर जा रहा है, after going up it will converge through here. So because of friction and all, in this region there will be no cloud formation. In this region this warm air will prevent any cloud formation and clear skies would be seen. But when cyclones move, this part of the cyclone will be reaching you. You will see a lot of rainfall. But when you reach the eye, you will see the climatic condition to be stable. आपको लगेगा बारिश का मौसम चला गया और बारिश का condition चला गया because there is no cloud also. But then as the cyclone move ahead, this part of the rain band will be reaching you and you will see rainfall again. Okay, कुछ और details मैंने यहाँ पे दी हैं, but as I told you, these are part of the basics. एक बार आप खुद से read करेंगे. In case you are not able to understand, I will explain it to you. I want to focus more on the main topics जो mains examination में आए हैं, not on the basic aspect. First is why tropical cyclones don't originate on western coast of South America, Africa and Australia. Australia का western coast, Africa का western coast, South America का western coast. Why don't they originate there? Western coast. You will see on the western coast of all these continents, there is cold ocean current coming from the South Pole. ये cold ocean current would lead to what? Keeping the sea surface temperature cooler. So cold ocean currents don't let shifting of ITCZ here and warm air does not converge here. Do we understand? हमने ocean currents पढ़े हैं, हमने ocean currents पढ़े हैं. Ocean currents, if you have studied ocean currents, you will know various ocean currents. Cold currents come from the Tropic of Capricorn के नीचे वाले region से to on the west side of the continent. Africa में भी, South America में भी, and even on the west coast of Australia. This cold ocean current will bring what? Cold water. It will reduce the temperature. It will not let low pressure system get created. This is the reason you will see on the western side of Africa deserts वाला situation रहता है, because वहाँ पे low pressure नहीं बन पा रहा. Low pressure नहीं बन पा रहा तो clouds would not be reaching there, would be getting formed there. Rainfall के scopes कम रहेंगे. तो one question, will we be able to answer this? Will we all be able to comfortably answer this? Now, how are cyclones originating in Indian Ocean named? This was another question that was asked in the examination. How do naming take place? देखो, cyclones in Atlantic region were named in the past also. How are cyclones named? This was a question that was asked in 2013 or 14 mains examination. Indian Ocean region में cyclones were not named before 2000. Before the year 2000, cyclone naming did not occur. Cyclone naming used to happen in the Atlantic system. Okay, but मैं आपको पहले briefly समझा दूंगा, then we'll go through the notes. But cyclone naming started after 2000 in the Indian Ocean region also. How the names were done? Naming was done. First, 8 countries came together. They gave 8 names each. So there were 64 names given by the 8 countries of this region. And whenever a cyclone in the North Indian Ocean originated, if it was identified, it was in sequence given one of the names. That name came from Sri Lanka, that name came from Bangladesh, that name came from India. It did not matter. सबका नाम sequence में use करना है. Then you will see recently those 64 names were exhausted. Those 64 names which were there, they were exhausted. Eventually, all 64 names were used in 2020. So, WMO, United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific panel of countries in April 2020 gave more names. Basically, now 13 countries came together and they gave 13 names each. So, there are 169 names and these names will be used in sequence. पहले इस country का एक नाम, फिर इस country का एक नाम, फिर इस country का एक नाम. So whenever a cyclone would come, you will see sometimes cyclone called Onil. Onil is basically Anil in Bengali. Bangladesh has given that name. समझ में आ रही है बात? तो how cyclones are named? Are we getting it? Are we understanding it? पहले 8 countries came together, they gave 64 names. Once those 64 names got exhausted, this time 13 countries of the region came together and gave 13 names each, total 169 names. Now let's study it, how these 8 countries came together, under which organization these 8 countries came together, under which organization are these 169 countries coming together. पहले broadly did we understand how naming occurs? If we are asked a question कि यार naming कैसे हो रही है, why this kind of name? Will we be able to answer that? Okay. हाँ, तो as I said कि पहले cyclones were not named in this region. In other parts of the world, it was named. Currently, worldwide, cyclones occur in 9 different regions: North Atlantic, Eastern North Pacific, Central North Pacific, Western North Pacific, North Indian Ocean, and it is the North Indian Ocean cyclone which impact South Asia, which impact us. Southwestern Indian Ocean, Australia, South Pacific and South Atlantic. These are the 9 regions of the world where what occurs? Cyclones occur. The system of naming of cyclone was finalized at a meeting of World Meteorological Organization. तो हमने बोला ना, these 8 countries come together. How did they decide कि this is how we'll name cyclone? It was finalized by WMO in their meeting, WMO and the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific in 2000. These two organizations together decided how naming should occur in the North Indian Ocean region, and first cyclone was named in 2004. 8 North Indian Ocean countries, उस time initially 8 countries had participated: Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Maldives and Oman, who used to get affected by cyclones. They gave 8 names each and total 64 names were in sequence used. Got it? When these names were exhausted in 2020, these names were exhausted. New set of names came into play. This time 13 countries came together: Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka. You will see UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, which were not part of the older 8 names. Because they are also getting impacted by cyclone, they also decided to be part of this panel. They gave 13 names each, 169 names. Those are the names which are being used right now. तो पूछा ये था हमसे, how are cyclones named? Will we be able to answer it? Now, why are they named? For ease of communication. Saying कि the cyclone which originated here and impacted this part in this month is difficult. Whereas bolna Hurricane Katrina, everyone would know which hurricane are we talking about. Tropical cyclone Onil, everyone would know which cyclone we be talking about. So why name a cyclone? Because for ease of communication, remembering cyclones or discussing their impact or warning people about them becomes easier with a name. Giving a name to a cyclone makes it easier to spread the word also. For this reason, cyclones are named. Okay, got it? Why cyclones are named?